the front men for AI deployment have all fomented fear into the mainstream narrative.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
Regulations are really only put into effect after something terrible has happened.
That's correct.
If that's the case for AI, and we're only putting regulations after something terrible has happened, it may be too late to actually put the regulations in place. The AI may be in control at that point.
You think that's real? It is conceivable that AI could take control and reach a point where you couldn't turn it off and it would be making the decisions for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, that's definitely where things are headed, for sure.
Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt says that every government is now engaged in a race to build robotic AI military systems.
For thousands of years, we've had the notion of stereotypically a man and a gun fighting another man and a gun, or with a horse or what have you. We're now breaking that connection forever. So all of a sudden, the logic of everything that we in our military do just doesn't make any sense, right? You should be building attritable, automated robotic systems for defense and offense.
This is what Palantir is developing in the Middle East, a robotic AI human killing machine. And it is what President Trump is developing in the United States with Peter Thiel, a name with a fitting anagram for MAGA's technocratic poster child, the reptile. Peter Thiel shows no sympathy for the genocidal murder he is helping execute with Palantir, and he believes the future is transhumanism.
A number of people deeply involved in artificial intelligence see it as a kind of mechanism for transhumanism, for transcendence of our mortal flesh. Is it hype? Is it delusion? Is it something you worry about? I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
Should the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body. A transvestite is someone who changes their clothes and cross-dresses. And a transsexual is someone where you change your penis into a vagina. And we can then debate how well those surgeries work. But we want more transformation than that. The critique is not that it's weird and unnatural. It's so pathetically little. And okay, we want more than cross-dressing or changing your sex organs. We want you to be able to change your heart and change your mind and change your whole body.
Science fiction author Isaac Asimov wrote The 3 Laws of Robotics in 1942. All of which were based on doing no harm to humans, and all of which have already been broken. While the US president pushes a 10-year moratorium on any AI regulation, the experts push fear, and Peter Thiel explains why.
You have been giving talks recently about the concept of the Antichrist. What does that mean to you? What is the Antichrist?
In all these Antichrist books, people wrote, how does the Antichrist take over the world? He gives these demonic, hypnotic speeches, and people just fall for it. And so it's this plot hole. The way the Antichrist would take over the world is you talk about Armageddon nonstop. You talk about existential risk nonstop, and this is what you need to regulate.
You're saying the real Antichrist would play on that fear and say, you must come with me to avoid Skynet, to avoid the Terminator, to avoid nuclear Armageddon.
Yes.
It just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done. How you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe, but
Greg Reese reporting.
everyone, and welcome. It is your host, Doug Diamond, here for the Diamond Report Live. Hello and welcome. It's 10:06 p.m. on July 6th, 2025. And it looked like there were some questions in chat there as to what the guy was talking about, meaning Peter Thiel. Well, it had to do, obviously, with technology and AI and how the Antichrist may use that to his control the planet in some way. And I thought the anagram with Peter Thiel's name was really interesting. Turns out it's also the same as, quote, the reptile. If you exchange the letters around just a little bit, you get a anagram, and that is the reptile, which also is Peter Thiel. Pretty interesting. Yeah, so anyway, that was a Reese report called The Reptile Hero of MAGA. So yes, we will see where all that goes, obviously, but it's not looking too good, is it? Anyway, I noticed that there are some new crowns in the chat tonight. That is a YouTube thing. That's nothing I've done, and don't have any control over that. So apparently it has to do with the comments you guys are making, and it's not showing up on my screen. It's not in the burned-in version of the chat. It's only showing up in the literal chat while it's live, which of course won't stick around for very long. Once the show is completed tonight, this file for tonight gets deleted, and I re-upload a YouTube safe version much later. Well, actually, a day or two later, Tuesday or Wednesday usually. And yeah, that's kind of how it works around here. We have to delete the stuff that I can still get strikes for off of YouTube. So we have to take that out and then put the show back up. It's kind of strange how it has to work, but that is the way it works around here. I know that our Lost Arts Radio channel just got a video removed a few days ago for vaccine misinformation. So they're still at it. They're still doing it. So anyway, let's take a look at the news. We've got several things to look at tonight, and we'll try not to go quite as long as last week. That was quite an epically long show. It seemed like well over 3 hours. I cut it down to 3 hours, so if you saw the final version on BitChute or Rumble or Brighteon or even Facebook and YouTube, they were much shorter. That was under 3 hours, but the show last week went, I think, 3.5 hours or more. So anyway, we'll try and keep it a little shorter tonight. All right. On Hal's website, HalTurnerRadioShow.com, the Houthis in Yemen resume attacks in the Red Sea. I thought there was a ceasefire. What happened to that? So they have resumed attacks in the Red Sea, and it says, update, on fire and sinking. The Houthis in Yemen have resumed attacking ships in the Red Sea with multiple attacks. Overnight into this morning, a Liberian-flagged bulk carrier was attacked near Yemen in a coordinated multi-wave assault. 8 to 9 skiffs opened fire with automatic weapons and RPGs. 4 explosive USVs, unmanned surface vessels, were launched. 2 were destroyed and 2 struck the vessel. 3 missiles targeted the ship in the latest wave, it says unconfirmed. This is the first Houthi-linked maritime attack since December last year, despite months of threats following U.S. strikes in Yemen and calls to blockade Haifa-linked shipping. It is a clear shift in Houthi intent for 2 reasons. First attack in so long, and scale of the attack with multiple weapon types was clearly intended to sink the ship. It says as of 2 o'clock Eastern today, the vessel is taking on water and the crew is preparing to abandon ship. This would be the Liberian bulk carrier that he's talking about here. Then it says update 2:21 p.m. today. The following social media post is from an account known to be who they claim to be, the Yemen military. The Zionist ship is on fire in the Red Sea. No ship will pass until aid is delivered to Gaza. So there you go. That's the reason, apparently. There's the explosion. The crew abandoned the ship and is currently on fire and sinking as of this afternoon, about 3 o'clock Eastern today. So it looks like they are trying to ramp things up again. So yes, this still has to do with Gaza. And of course, Israel continues to bomb Gaza like there's no tomorrow. And there probably isn't a tomorrow if you're in Gaza. All right, and then the next article on House site, U.S. used 2 years worth of THAAD interceptors to defend Israel over those 11 days. Israel media outlet Haaretz has reported that the U.S. military used 93 THAAD interceptor missiles in 11 days, 93, to defend Israel, revising earlier estimates by others of $800 million to an actual cost of approximately $1.2 billion. That would be our dollars, right? Not Israel's money. We're paying for it. With an annual production rate of roughly 36 to 48 THAAD interceptors, the U.S. used nearly 2 years' worth of those interceptors during the war in those 11 days. So I wonder how many they have left. Anyway, that is Hal's reporting here on his site. Actually, two more from that site. Jewish AI bot calls Orthodox Church the synagogue of Satan. So let me read that again. A Jewish AI bot calls the Orthodox Church the synagogue of Satan, meaning the Russian Orthodox Church. The Orthodox Church is the synagogue of Satan spoken of in the book of Revelation, and it was Zelensky's duty as a Jew to ban such an anti-Semitic, blasphemous abomination. Read your Bible, Anna. So this person that asked the question's name was Anna, and they just got chastised by this AI bot. It says on the gigantic social media platform X, there are a number of sophisticated robots, i.e. bots, that are very political and aggressive in pushing various narratives. One that subscribed to my profile is called terror_alarm. This posting by a bot caused me to block them. Terror alarm. So if you're on X, watch out for terror alarm. The Orthodox Church is a synagogue of Satan, according to this bot. AI is programmed by people, and the people who program this particular bot are Jewish by the bot's own admission. In fact, this bot is so slick that it routinely responds to people who object to things that it posts by telling them that their objection, since the bot is programmed by a Jewish staff, is, repeat after me, anti-Semitic. Again, a word that means absolutely nothing anymore. So it is an established fact by its own admission that Terror Alarm is a Jewish bot, and it is said what is said above. If you are a Christian, especially if you are, quote, pro-Israel, you need to take a good hard look at what this bot posted. According to the bot, Christian Orthodox churches are the synagogue of Satan. This bot has taken Christian scripture from the book of Revelation and turned it completely on its head. According to this Jewish bot, Christians, you and me, are to them the synagogue of Satan. Let that sink in. I've been telling you for years that these people are not who they claim to be. There's nothing chosen about most of them, especially the so-called Zionists. Now you see with your own eyes the most blatant proof that I have been right. Again, this is Hal's words. Zionists are pure evil, evil incarnate. They hide behind Judaism to avail themselves of the ability to cry anti-Semitism so as to stifle criticism of the outrages, the carnage that they perpetrate. They are violent frauds. The Bible tells us, by their fruits you will know them. Look at the fruits of Zionism: murder, death, destruction, chaos. Stay away from them. Again, words from Hal Turner on his site, and yes, pretty interesting that there are these bots out there that are calling the Orthodox Christians the synagogue of Satan. Pretty ironic, isn't it? And then, let's see, one more from this same site. To the Texas flooding, which that's the big story of the week. Area of Texas hit by flooding rain, part of North American Weather Modification Council. You can see the green areas there. If you guys didn't know, it's a huge flood in Texas. 9 U.S. states are using cloud seeding to modify the weather right now. Now, this is, let me just sort of preface this by saying, anytime you see cloud seeding, and you see it being done, perpetrated by certain states or certain corporations, certain companies, that is small scale. That is small potatoes. That is not the massive, worldwide, ongoing, international geoengineering programs that are affecting the entire climate of the whole of the earth. That is not what we're talking about here. So that is not really what Hal's talking about either. He's just talking about climate modification, a localized area. So I just wanted to add that just in case there's any debate or question about that. So he says 9 U.S. states are using cloud seeding to modify the weather right now. The part of Texas where those historic and horrific floods just hit is part of the area under, quote, weather modification. This is not a conspiracy. It's a official policy and it's active. Here's a link to the official website of the North American Weather Modification Council explaining what is actually being done to affect the weather. Right now, Texas, California, Utah, Colorado, Nevada, Idaho, Wyoming, New Mexico, and North Dakota are blasting chemicals into the sky to force rain, create snow, and suppress hail. Here is a map proving it. So that's all true, most likely. However, again, when you look at the big picture, though, it's happening globally, worldwide. I'm not sure if Hal is aware of that or not, but it is. So what he's doing here is he's trying to say that it was weather modification that caused this flooding, and it may have had some impact on it. I don't know. He says, now compare the green shaded areas in Texas on the weather modification map above, right here, to the Google map below showing the location of Kerrville, Texas, where the flooding took place. Right here. So right there near San Antonio. So about this area. To many rational people, it would seem very clear that the admitted weather modification areas has a direct effect on the massive flooding that has taken place in Kerrville. It's called cloud seeding, and they're logging thousands of hours every year. Texas covers 30 million acres with weather modification. Utah seeds skies every winter without public input. That would probably be for skiing and so forth. California lets utility companies steer storms while towns flood and burn. No public vote, no national debate, just quiet control. This isn't about helping people. It's about controlling the weather, the water, and who gets both. So when your town floods or it dries up, ask yourself, was it really just nature? And then here is an update to the story from Hal. He posted that Trump declared that area of Texas a major disaster area. So anyway, that seems to be a big question for a lot of people. Was this indeed weather modification? I would say that it most likely did have some effect on it. Mr. Dane reported on that as well. It's hard to know for sure, obviously. But listening to AJ, who happens to be not too far from there, and according to him, routinely vacations in that area, he's very familiar with the weather patterns in that area. And he said that this kind of thing is not really that unheard of. It's just that there are so many people there now that obviously it's going to affect a lot of people when it happens. So he wasn't really coming down on either side of, yes, it was definitely weather mod, or no, it wasn't. However, it seems to me like it could be some contributing factor here that was part of the whole process here, that weather modification did have something to do with this flood, but we just don't know. There's no way to know, and unfortunately, there's no way to prove it. So let's see here. There's a message in chat. Richie from Boston showed a Doppler radar map that showed they were manipulating the storm and holding it in place. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's very possible. We know they can do that. They did that with the hurricane that hit North Carolina last fall. That was kind of a given, really. It was pretty easy to see. So we'll address that a little bit more as we go tonight. This is really the big story for the week, so I've got several articles pulled up on this, including the alert today from Mr. Dane. So we will take a look at that a little closer. In the meantime, let's look at the next site I have pulled up, needtoknow.news. I've got 3 articles from this site pulled up. Ice Block. Ice Block. That is the name of an app, and it allows users to help the criminals evade ICE arrest. Isn't that sweet? All right. So it's an app that has been developed. It says, as immigration operations continue across Southern California and the U.S., a new app called Ice Block is gaining attention and controversy because it allows users to report sightings of ICE agents in their area. There's been a 500% increase in violence against ICE agents and law enforcement officers across the country. Obviously, they're just trying to do their job. The app, created by Joshua Aaron, essentially makes federal law enforcement officers targets by pinpointing their location. The app is being used by over 77,000 people and gaining more every day. Federalist assignment editor L. Purnell said that the Ice Block app is available on Apple's App Store, but back in 2021, Apple refused to support Parler in its App Store And they said that it was because they would not allow anything that was related to illegal activity. And they claimed that Parler had something to do with what happened on January 6th. I remember that. She said that it seemed that Apple has no problem platforming this particular app called IceBlock, which appears to be helping illegal activity. So they have chosen sides a long time ago. Apple did, obviously. The majority of Americans favor deportation after the U.S. border was left open under the Biden administration. If government benefits given to migrants were cut off, the incentive for most would end and they would self-deport peacefully. But sanctuary cities and states continue to fund them. Yeah, and protect them with things like the IceBlock app. So here's the person who developed it. There's more information on this page and 2 or 3 embedded videos here. So it's worth a look. And I did see somebody that said one way to sort of counter this particular app is to just download it and just start reporting stuff everywhere, all over the country, all the time, so that the locations that are being reported on the app are mostly false. So if that's the case, then you won't be able to trust any of them. So that's one thing that I saw where people were saying, yes, it could be countered, but you'd have to have a lot of people willing to download the app and then input false information, I guess, if that was going to work. I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying that was one counter that I heard to this whole IceBlock app. So bad news, though, that that's even available, because that's going to probably get someone hurt or killed, most likely. And it'll probably be an officer. All right, the other semi-big news, at least for depending on how you look at it, for some people, I suppose, the Sean Diddy Combs situation in the courts says Diddy was found guilty on lower charges, and critics blame the prosecutor, Maureen Comey. Yep, that's right. James Comey's daughter just happens to be randomly chosen the prosecutor in this situation. Maureen Comey, the daughter of disgraced former FBI Director James Comey, was appointed as the lead prosecutor in the Diddy case. Maureen also prosecuted the Ghislaine Maxwell case and is said to control the Epstein files. So that's what you do. You get your dirty person, in this case a prosecutor, to be in charge of everything, and then it can all be controlled. All of the information can be totally controlled, and they can lessen the charges against the person that you're going after, trying to make it into it more of a spectacle than anything. Anyway, so continuing on here, Diddy was found guilty on 2 charges of transportation to engage in prostitution. Critics said that the prosecution engaged in a cover-up and that was a show trial. Journalist Brianna Morello said that the purpose of the case was for the government to raid Diddy's home so that the deep state inside the government could obtain the compromising videos that could be used for blackmail. Morello said that she believed that the tapes have been used to blackmail celebrities to support Democrat Kamala. Yeah, and probably much more. Anyway, that is what's posted here on needtoknow.news, but yeah, there's probably not a whole lot of point in reporting much on this story, this whole Diddy thing, but just know that the information is being controlled, much like the Epstein stuff, and we will probably never ever know the truth. And obviously, he's getting off on the whole charges, all the different charges that were put up against him. He's getting off very lightly. And so if you're a Diddy fan, I suppose you're probably happy. But for people who want justice in this situation, you won't be finding any justice in this situation because it's controlled from the top down, like it always is. Anyways, that is a needtoknow.news article. All right, technocracy.news. Trump's BBB, just passed by the Senate, will permanently entrench the technocratic state. You know, the BBB, the Big Beautiful Bill, according to Trump. The Big Beautiful Bill passed amidst carping from every conceivable corner of the political spectrum. Senior citizens welcomed the income tax exemptions for Social Security benefits, and service workers are cheering the exclusion of tips. But few spotted or cared about the Trojan horse that just snuck in with ginormous payloads for technocracy, AI, and biometric surveillance. This is on par with the Patriot Act, which was hastily passed in 2001 in a knee-jerk response to the 9/11 attacks. The TSA was created and has been feeling us up ever since. Now, that was Patrick Wood, the editor of Technocracy.news. That's his verbiage that I just read there. From what I gather, though, the AI aspect of the BBB, the Big Beautiful Bill, has been removed. That they did that at the Senate level and then passed it. I don't know what else was removed, but the AI portion of this that was so bad was removed, apparently. Now, there's still a lot of other pork and a lot of bad stuff that has to do with the Big Beautiful Bill. There were some really good things, but there was a lot of pork and a lot of total garbage in it as well. Like always, that's always the case with these bills. But the what they're calling the biometric surveillance and artificial intelligence and immigration enforcement converging due to AI, what's being said here in this article, from what I gather, that was not part of the bill, finally, in the final form. So let's hope that's true. I don't really know without further looking into it, and that's just something that I had heard, and I know AJ and others have talked about it. So that would be good if the AI part of this whole thing was left out of the Big Beautiful Bill. And speaking of Big Beautiful Bill, this is the original Big Beautiful Bill. If you ever saw the Epstein files and stuff, you might remember that picture. The old Lewinsky dress being worn by Bill Clinton. Thought that was funny. New mind-reading AI predicts what humans will do next. This is a new breakthrough, but it's only the beginning because the researchers have released the modified AI and the training data to the world, meaning it will be quickly incorporated and enhanced into all predictive AI models, like Palantir's Gotham. Other failed predictive policing software will have a resurgence. Marketing companies like Google and Amazon will have a heyday with these new predictive metrics. So, and then just a reminder on this particular site, these articles do go behind a paywall after a while. I don't remember how many days, maybe 2 or 3 days or something. So if you're interested in this article and some of the others that I happen to mention on here, I think most of them do have this listen to the article playback box here, a little black box. And you should be able to listen to the full article even if you can't read the full article. So just a little note, a little glitch that I noticed on the website. I build websites, so I tend to notice stuff like that sometimes. But yeah, right now the article is in its full form here where you could read it. But if you want to check it out afterwards and it's behind the paywall, you might be able to go here and click the little playback button and listen to the full article that way. Unless, of course, they've fixed that bug by now. Anyway, just know that's available, technocracy.news. And then this is the other one that I pulled up from this site. Hawaii becomes the first state to charge tourists for their carbon footprint. Okay, this is a good example. This is only a piece of the article here, but you can listen to the full article read to you, which takes about 4 minutes. Shame on Hawaii after blaming global warming for the fires in Maui instead of their own mismanagement. Well, we know it was way more than that, don't we? Now the government is going to punish tourists by slapping them with a carbon footprint tax. Not merely lodging in hotels and vacation rentals, but cruise ships as well. At this rate, the government will be looking next to tax boat rentals, beach towels, and tiki torches. Paradise Lost. That's all this particular article says. But again, you should be able to listen to the full version on the site here. And this was actually a Zero Hedge article anyway, which is linked right into the picture here. So if you want to check out the full article about Hawaii becoming the first state to charge tourists for their carbon footprint, feel free to look at that. It's on technocracy.news. And then a couple of Liberty Beacon articles tonight. Elon Musk's America Party registers with the FEC, Federal Election Commission. It's official. Musk's America Party has registered. So I don't personally think this is going to work. I mean, we're a two-party system, and I don't see how this would work. I think you, at best, you would get another situation where you have like an independent person running for president, like Ross Perot did, in 92. And I just don't see how this will work. But anyway, let's take a look at what this says. A new filing with the FEC confirms that Musk's America Party is now official as the billionaire sets out to challenge the entrenched uniparty duopoly in Washington. Musk has voiced deep frustration with GOP lawmakers over their failure to codify Doge cuts and President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, which was signed into law on Independence Day. Yeah, and here's the actual filing. The custodian of records and treasurer is listed as this person, Tanasia, is the last name, who also currently serves as CFO of Tesla, per publicly available filings. So that's this person here pictured. Anyway, here is the full filing here. One day after his latest poll asking his followers on X whether the U.S. needs a new political party, Musk announced on Saturday that the America Party has formed. So just like that, he made it happen. I don't think I don't personally think that this is going to matter really much at all. However, it could give MAGA and Trump a run for their money. So I'm not real sure. Anyway, something to keep an eye on, I suppose. And then Netanyahu returns to Washington. Another war, another trip, and another ask. So that's coming up, I think, this week. With Gaza still burning and corruption charges mounting, Israel's prime minister arrives in D.C. looking for favors, not peace. Fresh off a bruising 12-day war with Iran, Bibi is flying back to Washington. This will be his third visit to the U.S. since Trump returned to the White House, but arguably the most consequential. For Netanyahu, it's more than a diplomatic courtesy call. It's a chance to cash in on battlefield momentum, convert military theatrics into political capital, and solidify his standing with Israel's most crucial ally. That would be us. According to Israeli media, Netanyahu's agenda goes beyond flag-waving and photo ops. He's expected to push forward on defense cooperation, intelligence sharing, and the new trade deal. But above all, he wants to translate Israel's perceived tactical success into long-term strategic advantage, ensuring that Washington remains firmly aligned with Israeli goals on regional security. It says Netanyahu isn't rushing to help Trump craft his legacy. The prime minister remains wary. Despite public praise from Trump, he's received no guarantees on issues closer to home, such as immunity from prosecution in his 2 ongoing corruption trials. These criminal cases are more than a legal headache. They are a political time bomb. Trump's vocal support, including recent calls to drop the charges, may play well with Netanyahu's base, but they've stirred unease among Israeli institutions, since some officials see this transatlantic alliance as an attempt to shield the prime minister from accountability. Yes, which is why they continue to want to be at war, because as long as they are, then he's in charge and he can't be prosecuted. So there's an aspect of trying to stay out of trouble, trying to stay out of jail, I suppose, with what Netanyahu is doing. It says, but for now, both leaders are walking a tightrope, balancing war, diplomacy, and ambition, hoping not to fall before the next election. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it sounds like Bibi's going to be coming back to town and have his hands out yet again, wanting more money. Just like old Zelensky. Anyway, that is a Liberty Beacon article as well. And then I found this one, New York Post. Bush teams up with notorious Trump foes to trash colossal mistake, shuttering the USAID. So, yeah, former President George W. joined with former President Barack Hussein Obama and U2 singer Bono, what a trio we have there, to comfort the U.S. Agency for International Development employees on Monday, while also taking shots at Trump and his administration for shuttering the agency plagued by accusations of fraud and abuse. That's all they do is fraud and abuse. That's the entire definition of USAID. Okay, well, here's what Obama said. Gutting USAID is a travesty and a tragedy, Obama said in a video that was shown to departing USAID employees on Monday, according to the AP, because it's some of the most important work happening anywhere in the world. Yes, they are doing very important work. It's called money laundering. That's what they're doing. Obama summed up the decision to shutter the agency as a colossal mistake and added that sooner or later, leaders on both sides of the aisle will realize how much you are needed. Bush, Obama, and Bono spoke to departing USAID members and employees on Monday in a video conference as the agency officially was shuttered following the Trump administration's reporting that it was overrun with alleged corruption and mismanagement. The video conference did not include members of the media, with the AP reviewing the reporting on clips of the conference later that day. So there's Bono and there's Bush here. Anyway, so again, this is a mainstream media article, so of course they're favoring what these three clowns are saying, not what USAID is actually doing, and that would be money laundering and making sure that the money that is supposedly earmarked and be sent to all these different crazy, well, not just organizations, but causes, all these LGBTQ things that they have, and, you know, running shrimp on treadmills and all this craziness that they have. They want to make sure that they continue getting their money, don't they? Anyway, that's on New York Post. And then this one as well from the New York Times. Mamdani identified as Asian and African American on college application. So people are really digging into the whole Zohran Mamdani thing. He's the Democrat running for mayor of New York. Was born in Uganda. He doesn't consider himself black, but said that the application did not allow for the complexity of his background. Yes. As he runs for mayor of New York, Mamdani has made his identity as a Muslim immigrant of South Asian descent a key part of his appeal. South Asian. But as a high school senior in 2009, Mr. Mamdani, a Democrat nominee, claimed another label when he applied to Columbia University. Asked to identify his race, he checked the box that he was, quote, Asian, but also, quote, black or African American, according to internal data derived from a hack of Columbia University that was shared with the New York Times. Columbia, like many elite universities, uses a race-conscious affirmative action admissions program at that time. Probably still do, if you ask me. Reporting that his race was black or African American, in addition to Asian, could have given him an advantage, who was born in Uganda and spent his earliest years there. In an interview on Thursday, Mamdani, 33, said that he did not consider himself either black or African American, but rather an American who was born in Africa. He said his answers on the college application were an attempt to represent his complex background, giving the limited choices before him, not to gain an upper hand in the admissions process. But then it says he was not accepted at Columbia. So anyway, they're saying that, here's the form here, I guess. They're saying that he's misidentified himself on the form. And then on top of that, we have this one, white collar fraud. Very similar story. That his campaign finance records were altered twice after, it says, we exposed $1.6 million in irregularities. So this whole deal with Mamdani, who again is running for mayor of New York, more and more stuff keeps coming out about this guy. So first we had the misidentification on the college application, and now we've got apparently some records that were altered, exposing $1.6 million in irregularities. Campaign finance records were altered twice in one day after sustained media pressure. But was it a desperate cover-up or correction of a systematic false reporting that had been deceiving voters for weeks? So there's more information here about this whole deal with this smoking gun. They're calling it a smoking gun. And the alteration of some of these records for the campaign stuff for this guy. So that's another thing. And then yet again, resurfaced video shows New York City Mayor hopeful saying that he wants to replace private homes with communal living. So Zohran Mamdani's 2021 video reveals plans for communal housing with shared laundry, kitchens, and bathhouses. So isn't that lovely? Says Mamdani, the Democrat Socialist candidate for New York City mayor, he literally calls himself that, a Democrat Socialist, has come under fire from critics who label him a communist, a charge that he dismisses as a distraction. Yes, but he clearly is. However, the criticisms may not be as unfounded as he claims. Videos show the New York City mayoral candidate espousing language and theories rooted in communist revolutionary language. In 2021 video, he urges fellow socialists at a conference to not compromise on goals like, quote, seizing the means of production, end quote. In a second video released on YouTube by a progressive advocacy group called the Gravel Institute that same year, Mamdani discusses the need to turn housing from a private commodity into a public one, calling for luxury condos to be replaced with communal-style living that would include things like shared laundry facilities and food co-ops. So this is the guy they're trying to put in charge, I guess, in New York City. Isn't that lovely? Anyway, that's a Fox News article, but I just think it's kind of interesting how all this stuff's coming out about him now. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes, but it's probably going to be running against current mayor Eric Adams. So, who knows? It is New York after all, so anything can happen. And then, Zero Hedge article, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy bans the rainbow crosswalks. I know that just makes you all sad and not sure what to do with yourself, but it says Duffy sent a letter to all 50 state governors, all 50 states, the D.C. mayor and Puerto Rico's governor, a letter that he also shared with the Daily Signal. Trump's transportation secretary told the governors to work on removing distractions, including woke political symbols, from roads and intersections. In the letter, he wrote, roads are for safety, not political messages or artwork. Today, I'm calling on all governors in every state to ensure that roadways and intersections, crosswalks are kept free of distractions. He added, far too many Americans die each year to traffic fatalities to take our eye off the ball. He assured the governors that the Transportation Department stands ready to help communities across the country make their roads safer and easier to navigate. Just this June, Rhode Island man was reportedly arrested for leaving skid marks on a rainbow crosswalk. Hopefully, Duffy's new guidance will help the man as his case moves forward. Yeah, he was fined, I think. I remember reporting on that back when that happened. Yeah, for leaving skid marks on the rainbow crosswalk. Yes. Anyways, so I think that's good news that they're trying to ban the rainbow crosswalks in all 50 states. So anyway, we'll see where it goes. Information liberation. Trump announces he's working on mass amnesty plan for illegal aliens after passing the big, beautiful bill. In his first speech after the passing of the bill, Trump said that he's working on a mass amnesty for potentially millions of illegal aliens working in farm, hotel, and leisure industries, which radical right people will not be happy about. Meaning people who just want the law obeyed. I guess that means you're radical right. But yes, they may, or he may, generate or create mass amnesty for all of these illegals who are currently working in farm and hotel and leisure industries. So he's heard from a lot of the owners of those companies in those industries, and they've come to him and said, if you kick all of our employees out, then we're going to have to close down. And he doesn't want that to happen, which, I can understand that as a business owner. I get it. But why are you hiring illegals other than you simply don't want to pay more of a fair market price, hourly wage to actual U.S. citizens? So you would prefer to hire illegals. So that tells me that you're kind of doing something wrong anyways, not exactly above board. So personally, I think that he should kick them all out. If they're here illegally, he should kick them out. That's my opinion. But anyway, I guess that's not what Trump is doing. And then the next article here on information liberation. House passes Trump's big, beautiful bill after conservative goodies stripped by Senate. Republicans went ahead and passed the BBB in the House on Thursday, despite most of the goodies in the bill that conservatives have been stripped out in the Senate. So, and part of that was the AI stuff that I mentioned before. That was taken out. AIPAC-funded reps put forward bill to transfer American B-2 bombers and bunker busters to Israel. AIPAC-funded Congressman Lawler and Gottheimer have put forward a bill to transfer American B-2 stealth bombers and bunker busters to Israel. Because obviously Israel needs them and we don't. And we pay for them and they don't have to. That's how it works. Yeah, how about hiring Americans? That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think so too. And then one more here. Elon Musk backing Thomas Massie against the Trump AIPAC challenger. So Musk is officially backing Massie to help him defeat whatever swamp creature that President Trump and AIPAC try to recruit to oust him from Congress. I mentioned that last week. The Kentucky/Israel organization, I forget what it was called, but there is literally a organization that's trying to find somebody. I think there was even a person that they had in mind to run against Massie to try and defeat him, but I don't think it's going to happen. And Massey's very popular in Kentucky, so I don't see him losing really, no matter how much money gets thrown at it. And now he's got the backing of Musk. So there you go. Anyway, those are the top articles at the moment on information liberation. It's a good site. And then WNG.org. California wildfire scorches nearly 53,000 acres in a day, just in one day. California wildfire Central San Luis Obispo County that began on Wednesday had burned 52,592 acres by Thursday night, according to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, or CAL FIRE. The Madre fire quickly became the state's largest individual fire of 2025. It outpaced the Palisades fire in January purely in terms of size. However, a string of wildfires, including the Palisades and Eaton fires, burned more total acreage at that time and were much more destructive in terms of loss of life and structures. The blaze was just 10% contained on Thursday night, according to CAL FIRE. So it's talking about the areas that has been burned. Los Padres National Forest and about 50 structures, San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties. Nearly 600 firefighters and several helicopters and air tanker crews were fighting the fire as of Thursday. So we'll see what happens there with that. Yeah, more wildfires in California. So it seems to be a never-ending thing. And we have on the geoengineeringwatch.org website, we have a whole section on the site there where it talks about using wildfires as a geoengineering tool. Like, they actually use the smoke from wildfires theoretically to cool the planet, and that is being done in mass, which is part of the reason that there are so many wildfires. One of the many reasons. And they're doing that across Canada as well, not just California. So anyway, that is on WNG.org. And then a few articles from RT. Israel launches Operation Black Flag against Yemen. So we were talking about the Houthis at the beginning of the show. The IDF has begun striking ports and other infrastructure in retaliation for Houthi drone and missile attacks. So they're constantly in the mode of bombing people. Israel has launched an extensive bombing operation targeting key infrastructure in Yemen, with the IDF accusing the Houthi terrorist regime of repurposing ports and power stations for military use. The new bombing campaign against one of the world's poorest nations, dubbed Operation Black Flag, was announced early Monday by Defense Minister Katz and the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF. The strikes targeted infrastructure at the Yemeni ports of, and then it mentions the different ports, as well as a power station at Ras Khatib. Loud explosions were reported in areas surrounding the target sites. These ports were used by the Houthi terrorist regime to transfer weapons from the Iranian regime, which are employed to carry out terrorist operations against the State of Israel and its allies, the IDF claimed. So then it says the operation was described as a direct response to repeated drone and missile attacks launched from Houthi-controlled territory toward Israel in recent weeks. So the battle continues to rage. I like how Israel always calls the other country's leadership the regime, and yet no one ever calls the Israel leadership the regime. Seems to me like they are too. All right, that one's on RT, and then this one, U.S. fighter jet intercepts suspicious plane over Trump golf club. So I thought this was kind of strange just because they use this fighter to intercept what appears to be a Cessna here. 5 separate incursions into restricted airspace occurred over Bedminster on Saturday, NORAD said. Wasn't Bedminster? I think Bedminster was that area, in New Jersey, where where those drones were a few months back. All the drones. An F-16 fighter jet intercepted a civilian aircraft, which appears to be a Cessna, that violated restricted airspace over U.S. President Trump's golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey on Saturday. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, has confirmed. The incident occurred around 2:39 local time. That was today. When a general aviation plane entered a temporary flight restriction, TFR zone, which was activated due to Trump's presence in the area, NORAD scrambled an F-16, which performed a standard headbutt maneuver to alert the pilot and safely escort the aircraft out of the restricted zone. The interception was part of a broader alert response as Saturday saw a total of 5 separate TFR violations in the Bedminster area, including 3 prior to the headbutt incident and 1 more later in that day. So, I guess that was yesterday. NORAD did not release additional details about the aircraft or pilots. So who knows? Maybe they just wandered into that area, but it seems kind of strange. They should know about the restricted areas. So very strange. Anyway, using a sledgehammer to kill an ant, it seems to me, but whatever. Anyway, that is an RT article. Western AI doesn't answer questions, it installs values. Generative artificial intelligence spreads across the global south, and with it spreads values, ideals, and modes of thinking. Generative AI spreads across the global south in the latest vehicle of imperialistic power, embedding Western ideologies in digital infrastructure while rising civilizations begin to build their own sovereignties, their own sovereign systems rooted in local memory, languages, and traditions. The machine speaks in English first. It rolls out across continents without flags, without parliaments, and without anthems. A chatbot trained in San Francisco begins to teach in Ghana. A search engine optimized in Zurich decides on the relevance of an indigenous ritual in Colombia. Every answer flows through circuits built with the logic of Silicon Valley investors and Harvard ethicists. The model replies to a question about history by quoting Enlightenment philosophers. It offers help with medicine by citing patent-protected pharmaceuticals. It knows Shakespeare better than Tagore and Freud better than Avicenna. Through its confidence, it encodes hierarchy. Through its helpfulness, it expands its domain. Every query becomes a harvest. Every interaction becomes training data. The machine learns faster than any school. It speaks always, grows always, and teaches always. Across bandwidth lines and user interfaces, it crosses every border without a visa or a treaty. So that's a really good point. I hadn't really thought, I guess, about that too much, how it's the Western AI that's going to be dominating across the whole world. And how do they feel about that? Anyway, that is a RT article. There's much more here than what I read, but you can get the idea. And it's not a good thing. Next war with Israel will be final, high-ranking Iranian official says to RT. Sources claim that Tehran still poses numerous new generation missiles, against which the Jewish state is, quote, defenseless. So here we go. The Iranian war machine apparently is still active according to the Israelis. So therefore, we have to continually bomb them and continually stay at war with them because we need the never-ending war with Iran, according to Israel. An anonymous, high-ranking Iranian source told RT on Monday that Tehran is prepared to make any future war with Israel its last, warning that Iran retains advanced missiles capable of overwhelming Israeli defenses. The source, described as, quote, informed, said Tehran has identified vulnerabilities in Israel's security during the most recent 12-day conflict, which ended with a U.S.-brokered ceasefire. Iran will make the next war with Israel its last war, a source claimed, adding that the Islamic Republic could launch hundreds of missiles daily in the event of another conflict. The source added that Tehran had found the Israeli regime's weak point. There it is, Israeli regime. So Iran, supposedly, they're claiming that they found the weak point. I don't know if that means in general or just with the Iron Dome or what that means exactly. So anyway, it sounds like Iran is kind of making some pretty big threats there against Israel. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes, won't we? Okay, and then I wanted to mention this. Miss Emily's here, so she can back this up probably. Nevada energy leaders talk cleanup and power restoration after windstorms knock down power poles. So I talked to Mr. Dane a couple days ago, and he was asking me if I knew about this. I hadn't really seen anything on it, so I thought I'd look it up. Las Vegas earlier this week, Wednesday could only be described as around-the-clock work. Utility crews were spread around the Vegas area, cleaning up the mess left behind by Tuesday's windstorms. One of the hardest hit areas stretched along Tropicana Avenue, where 32 utility poles went down across multiple miles. And they're not all wooden poles. Some of them were the steel ones like that. That is a pretty big wind, wouldn't it be? The aftermath is something NV Energy Director of Operations Shannon Gregory hasn't seen in years. I've been with NV Energy for about 23 years. I've been in my current role as director for 3 years and a journeyman lineman for almost 30, she said. And then it says, I spent time in the control center, and you can literally watch the wind roll through the valley at high winds. Not just little breezes, right? Roll through the valley based on how much of an impact it has on our system. So when this happens, it's not a surprise. The impact on this road especially is an absolute surprise. Gregory spent the day coordinating multiple crews at several damaged sites and navigate the removal, replacement, and most importantly, power restoration. At its peak, more than 30,000 people had lost power due to these windstorms. So I just thought that was kind of crazy that sort of freak windstorm happened. And then this is a Substack about all of that, which I thought was kind of interesting because it gets into geoengineering and weather manipulation. The Las Vegas Virga bomb and the government weaponization of weather. Sounds like science fiction, but weather manipulation is scientific fact, and man will always attempt to be like God. It looked like Judgment Day in the time that it takes to microwave a cup of coffee. The sky over Las Vegas turned malevolent. No warning sirens, no days-long forecasts or frantic weather coverage, just a sudden thunderous burst that collapsed into the city like a building detonation. Palm trees snapped like matchsticks. Power lines twisted into snarled necklaces and fell into the streets with electric shrieks. Roofs peeled away from strip malls and restaurants. Neon signs buckled. Cars were smashed. Sidewalks were littered with shattered glass and mangled debris. It wasn't the usual slow churn of a thunderstorm or a swirling chaos of a tornado. It was a sharp, surgical, and it was concentrated. And when the dust settled, the people who emerged from their homes didn't describe it as a storm. They described it as a bomb. The National Weather Service later labeled it a microburst. The term is used to describe sudden downdraft of air, often in desert regions, that slams into the ground before blasting outward with hurricane-like force. These events are real. So there's a few more details here. Then it says, nothing to see here. Citizen, move along. So they're explaining it away as quick as possible. And then in this particular article, they start talking about weather manipulation and weather control. And then it gets into NOAA. And then it gets into HARP. Talking about the HARP system. So, geoengineering. And how all of that may have been part of what happened there in Vegas last week. So pretty interesting. The history of weaponized weather is another section of this Substack. So it's a good post. There's a lot here. If you guys want to check it out, it's a Substack called Insight to Insight. But we'll link to this on the Substack post that I send out myself on Tuesday. Pretty wild. Let's see if she happened to mention that. Yes. Usually it's the trees, but yes, the wind is crazy. Sometimes you get blasted being outside. It's horrible, she says. Yeah, I'm sure. I was in Vegas at the beginning of the year, and we didn't experience anything like that. I thought that was pretty wild. I did not know that all those power lines got snapped. That is wild. And then this one is a technocracy.news article as well, which we usually cover earlier, but I found this one linked to from Daily Crow, and I thought it would be worth mentioning only because I don't think it's quite as bad as what is being summed up here in this particular article. AI.gov, the digital Leviathan launching this Independence Day. So this is talking about because it's part of the BBB, the Big Beautiful Bill. Patrick Wood here is saying, happy birthday, America. Here's your present, enslavement. Then he says, gotcha. AI.gov will be exclusively run by technocrats to achieve technocrat ends. There will be no public input or involvement. For all you scoffers like politicians, academics, and citizens who have been carping me for the last 18 years, as I warned you what was coming, will you please get your head on straight? If these digital maniacs are not stopped, it is game over for freedom and liberty and sanctity, for sanctity and humanness. So he's not wrong there. The only thing that I'm finding that is incorrect is that I went to, unlike most people, I actually typed in the URL to see if it worked. Here, let me do it again. AI.gov, and it loads whitehouse.gov. So the website that Patrick is talking about here, about this new AI portal that's supposed to be there, is not there yet. I'm not saying it won't be, but it is not there yet. Right now, when you go to AI.gov, you just get the whitehouse.gov website. So, kind of interesting. And speaking of AI, I found this clip too and thought it was kind of strange. Palantir's CEO, Alex Karp, who is Jewish, would like to have drones spray fentanyl-laced urine on people that oppose him. You think he's joking? ? Well, I personally don't think he's joking.
You need a higher purpose, and I also think you often need a lower purpose. Like the higher purpose for me...
What's a lower purpose?
Well, I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us. So that's my lower purpose. And, and others. But the higher purpose for me was to get this nation to be the preeminent power in the world, because whatever faults we have, they're nothing like anyone else's.
So there you go, right from Karp's mouth. He thinks that we need to have fentanyl-laced urine to spray on the negative analysts. Kind of says a lot, doesn't it? Thought that was kind of strange. All right, and then this one I found on NDTV. Controversy erupts as scientists start work to create artificial human DNA. I wonder why we need that. Are we going to have artificial humans? Or do we already? The Synthetic Human Genome Project is being funded by the Wellcome Trust. So the Wellcome Trust, though, is I think, part of the whole Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation thing. I think they're connected. Scientists have begun work on a controversial project that aims to create human DNA from scratch. World's largest medical charity, the Wellcome Trust, has donated £10 million to start the project, which involves scientists from universities including Oxford, Cambridge, and Imperial College. Regarded as the building blocks of human life, DNA is made up of repeating units called nucleotides, which contain all the genetic information that physically makes us who we are. Scientists involved in the Synthetic Human Genome Project are now attempting to create a fully synthetic human chromosome, making up about 2% of human DNA as proof of concept. The ultimate aim is to maybe one day create it all from scratch. The sky is the limit, they say. I think that's a bad idea, don't you? But again, you know, if they're just reporting on this, obviously they've been working on it for a long time. Yeah, who even thinks of such a thing? What is wrong with that guy? I know. Why do we need artificial human DNA when we have real humans with real DNA? Well, they're obviously trying to perfect it, sounds to me like. Whatever they're considering perfection. Building DNA from scratch allows us to test out how DNA really works and test out new theories. Because currently we can only really do that by tweaking DNA in DNA that already exists in living systems, meaning in humans and animals. Yeah, I mean, why do we need that? Well, we don't. But obviously these crazy scientists think that we do. Anyway, thought that was very strange. That one's ndtv.com is where that one is. And then kind of back to the Texas flood thing for just a minute. Strange details have emerged about the Christian camp Mystic, which that is the camp, I guess, the girls' camp that was hardest hit in that area in Texas that we mentioned at the beginning of the show. And according to this article, this is on WLT Report. I want to be very clear up front in this article that I'm not making any accusations or blaming anyone. This is what the article is. I'm literally just reading the article here. Or saying what happened is anything short of a horrific tragedy. In fact, I said yesterday this is probably the most horrific story I've covered here in 10 years. And nothing in this article changes that. Are we clear? Again, this is by Noah, I guess, the person who wrote this article on WLT Report. Says, go up and reread all that one more time because I don't want any hate in the comments below, but we do investigative journalism here, and sometimes that means I show you things that just don't look or feel right. When the story first broke, apart from my obvious first reactions, is that the most awful thing I've heard in a long time, my second thought is, why do they keep calling it a Christian camp if the name is Camp Mystic? And I wondered that too when I saw that was the name of it. I'm like, that's not really a Christian type of name, is it? And that's what he says here. That's a very bizarre name for a Christian camp. Much more common might be something like Camp Redeemer or Camp Cornerstone or River of Life Camp or Refuge Ridge. You get the idea. But Camp Mystic? Mystics and mysticism is in direct conflict with Christianity. And then he says, I did ask ChatGPT about the name, and it offered a flimsy suggestion that the area where the camp is located is just so beautiful that it might feel mystical. That's what ChatGPT said. But anyway, right out of the gate, I've been a bit perplexed by that, and that's not the main thing that I wanted to show you. The main thing is that the details are now emerging that the, quote, Christian summer camp has deep connections to Texas political elite and other power brokers. So, and then we've got some postings here that were from Twitter. And it says, okay, this paints an entirely new picture for me. And wow, the daughters of former Texas governors Dan Moody, Price Daniel, and John Connally, who was shot as he sat next to John F. Kennedy in the car when he was assassinated in Dallas in 1963, all attended the camp. So the daughters of these guys, Texas governors. And then there's a picture here, a link to a picture. Again, I'm not saying there's anything nefarious going on here. I'm just saying, why do strange details like this always seem to pop up in these big national tragic news stories? Here's a brief summary of just some of the big name connections to the camp. And let me see here. I think I've got that actual tweet pulled up. Yeah. So again, the Texas governor's daughters, right, attended the camp. The daughters, granddaughters, and great-granddaughters of Democrat President Lyndon Baines Johnson, JFK's successor and one of Texas' most formidable politicians, also summered at Camp Mystic. So that camp's been around a long time. James Baker, who served as chief of staff to Republican presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, sent his daughter and his granddaughter to Camp Mystic. First Lady Laura Bush was a Camp Mystic counselor years before she married George W. Campers would go on to become executives for Neiman Marcus, dance with London's Royal Ballet, own a Gymboree franchise in the former Soviet Union, or marry well and become the kind of intensely focused volunteers who would probably be happier as CEOs. Aside from when the federal government leased Camp Mystic as a convalescent camp for the Army Air Corps veterans of World War II between 1943 and 45, it has operated continuously since its founding, according to the Texas State Historical Association. So this meme here, Christian summer camp where girls went missing during devastating flooding, has been attended by daughters of Texas' political elite for 100 years. Yeah, it is very strange, you must admit. And, there's more details on this article. Let me see if I can find the conclusion here. I guess this, inspiration. Mystic is a non-denominational Christian camp and provides its campers and counselors with many different ways in which they can grow spiritually. Sunday at Camp Mystic is a day of rest, relaxation, and worship. Everyone is encouraged to visit Chapel Hill, a special place overlooking Mystic, for prayer and Sunday services. Devotionals are held on Sunday mornings along the banks of the beautiful Guadalupe River. Campers and counselors join together to sing songs and listen to scripture, discover ways to grow spiritually, and learn to apply these lessons to their daily life at camp and back home. In my review, I see a blend of clear Christian concepts like Bible study, church services, and communion, and other things layered in with a strong focus on growing spiritually, quote unquote, and having a spiritual environment in doing personal development. Not to say all those things need to be mutually exclusive. A very lengthy article by Texas Monthly from 2011 describes the camp as what feels to me almost like the skull and bones of Yale for summer camps rather than anything you or I might recognize from our experiences. But again, maybe that's just me. I was thinking that actually, skull and bones, like at skull and bones at Yale, but for young girls. Maybe not, but I mean, just it kind of puts one in mind of that. So very strange goings on at Camp Mystic. So that's something I'm sure that people will be looking into. I think I've got one more tab pulled up in just a minute on further Camp Mystic strangeness, so we'll look at it a little closer. And speaking of strange things, not necessarily a mystic, but the surgeries of Brigitte Macron, surgeon that was linked to Brigitte and her transgender speculation, has been found dead. So isn't that interesting? The surgeon linked to Brigitte Macron's transgender speculation found dead solidifies suspicion that Macron is married to an XY groomer. It had received nearly 280,000 views within 3 days, this video. Transcript translated from French. A voiceover here says, on June 29th, a man was found dead after a terrible fall from his window of the 12th arrondissement of Paris. The medical examiner's office stated that Francois Fevre, 58, committed suicide. He was a surgeon working in a Parisian clinic. Dr. Fevre's sister, Anne Dupont, said that he was not suicidal and that his death was probably linked to the interview he'd supposedly had with a journalist. According to M.M.E. Dupont, her brother was a colleague of the famous plastic surgeon Patrick Bouy. Dr. Fevre had promised a journalist to shed light on the controversial surgical operations of Madame Brigitte Macron. Here's an excerpt from the Zoom call in preparation for his upcoming interview with the journalist from Closer magazine. So, anyway, jumping down to where that is talking about Macron. Dr. Francois says, yes, he told me about the physical changes that Brigitte Macron underwent during the transgender surgery in the hospital. And then the interviewer asked the question, are you talking about her sex change surgery? Can you tell me some more details? And that's where the video ends. So isn't that lovely? Kind of leaves you hanging. But anyway, there is a video embedded here, and don't know if it has much more details than what I just read, but very interesting that the surgeon has now been found dead. Pretty wild. Brigitte Macron continues to be a big question mark for people. I mean, if you've seen any of her, pictures of her at the lake with the president, it's pretty obvious when you see her in a bathing suit what's going on there, if you know what I mean. I would say that there's a really good chance that she was a guy at some point, and therefore still is, technically. All right, LeoHoman.com. Top tech execs being recruited into the U.S. Army as colonels to turbocharge the military's use of drone warfare, robot soldiers, and other AI-powered killing machines. The Army says it's part of a plan to tap the latest AI technology from the private sector that will increase efficiencies, quote-unquote, on the battlefields, i.e. the killing fields, of the future. In a race to defeat China, will we become China? Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. They've taken some of these executives from Meta and Palantir and OpenAI, and they were sworn in to the Army Reserves at the rank of lieutenant colonel. That's an officer's rank typically reserved for someone who has served for years and has led thousands of men into combat. So they just automatically brought these guys in who had no experience and gave them the rank of lieutenant colonel. Known as Detachment 201, the new, quote, Executive Innovation Corps will be responsible for the military's tech transformation, integrating new technologies such as AI-powered drones and human robots, the Army announced on June 13th. How about that? Not too surprising, I guess, but very strange. So they just brought him right in. And then other Leo Hohmann articles on his Substack. NATO is being humiliated by Russia, and it has no one to blame but itself. That's one of the most recent articles. Another one about the big, beautiful bill. Just passed the Senate will massively expand the digital biometric surveillance state for years to come. Yeah, that is what we talked about earlier, and some of that may be in the bill still, but a lot of the AI stuff was removed. So we will see. And that is leohoman.substack.com. And then we've got a few articles on natural news this week. U.S. shutters USAID in sweeping foreign aid overhaul, sparking fears of humanitarian crisis. So we mentioned this a little bit ago. It's kind of what they're doing with the whole Bush and Obama and Bono thing. USAID, key provider of American humanitarian aid since 1961, will cease operations. That is a definite half-truth. I mean, they may have been doing some humanitarian aid at some point, but at some other point it became a money laundering scheme. Secretary of State Rubio announced the decision, calling it a cost-cutting move to eliminate inefficiency. Humanitarian groups, foreign policy experts, and Democrats argue the shutdown will endanger millions, especially in conflict zones and poor nations. Yeah, and also the money that's coming back to them as Democrats. Thus, the money laundering. Anyway, yeah, former Presidents Bush and Obama condemned the move, warning of long-term damage to America's global role. Yeah, which you mentioned already. So that is one of the natural news articles I found. And then Del Monte Foods files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So they are restructuring, I think. Yeah, Chapter 11 bankruptcy in New Jersey as part of a strategic restructuring aiming to pursue a court-supervised sale of most or all of its assets. So you guys like the Del Monte Foods, I think it's mostly canned foods and stuff. They're having some financial trouble, let's just say that. Despite the filing, the company assured that there will be no disruption of its product availability and day-to-day operations will continue as normal. The company cited liabilities between $1 billion and $10 billion and secured $912.5 million in financing, including $165 million in new funding to maintain liquidity during the process. The filing follows a controversial 2023 debt restructuring that led to legal disputes with lenders after Del Monte shifted assets in a drop-down transaction to raise new funds. So it sounds like they've been having financial troubles for a few years. Del Monte Foods. So something to take a look at if you guys are interested. Natural news article here. Amazon nears tipping point as robots rival human workforce in warehouses. Amazon's deployed over 1 million robots in its fulfillment centers, nearly matching its human warehouse workforce as part of a decade-long automation effort. Approximately 75% of Amazon's global deliveries are now assisted by automation, with advanced robots like Vulcan handling increasingly complex tasks such as item picking and stowing. Automation has boosted productivity, with the number of packages shipped per employee rising sharply, while the average headcount per facility has dropped to a 16-year low. Massive centers like the one in Shreveport, Louisiana, showcase the future of Amazon's operations, where robotic arms and AI systems enable 25% faster processing speeds than less automated sites. Wow. Despite Amazon's claims that robots are meant to augment, not replace humans, critics argue the company's automation strategy signals a long-term plan to significantly reduce its human labor force. Well, that seems to be obvious, doesn't it? That's where it's going. Anyway, that's a natural news article. Just got a few more here tonight. Let's see. Winepress News, Substack. Tech and financial gurus seek to leverage AI and crypto to live forever and preserve their wealth. Trump says he's preparing to give amnesty to illegals in farming and hospitality sectors, which we mentioned earlier. Yeah, and then let's see. That's Winepress, thewinepress.substack.com. And then this one on the Gateway Pundit. Breaking, new FBI memo concludes Jeffrey Epstein did not have a client list and committed suicide with video of the jail cell. So yes, and it's on its way to Pam Bondi's desk, most likely, never to be seen or heard from again. The new FBI DOJ memo obtained by Axios concluded, this is dated today, concludes that Jeffrey Epstein did not have a client list that he used for blackmail. The FBI also determined that Epstein did commit suicide in August of 2019. In May, FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino ignited a firestorm across conservative circles after publicly backing the official narrative that Epstein died by suicide. The FBI memo says that there's no evidence that Epstein blackmailed powerful political figures. No, none at all. So it's all our imagination, and we're all crazy, and we're all conspiracy theorists, and none of that existed. He was just a choir boy. He simply did nothing. He was framed, probably. Surprised they don't say that. Anyway, obviously, none of this is true. But I just thought it's kind of funny that this has come out, that the official FBI memo from Kash Patel and Dan Bongino is saying, no, he did not have a client list. So clearly, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and whoever else at that upper level, they're compromised somehow. So, you know, something to keep in mind, and we will probably never know the truth. If you got people like that in charge, how would you? So there you go. All right, and then, not the B article on the Texas floods. Check out the latest updates and more rescue videos. So I won't bother playing the rescue videos. You guys have probably seen some of them. Pretty dramatic, actually, some of them. The death toll in Texas floods has reached 70, and there are no signs that the number won't still climb. I think it's closer to 80 now, maybe. So this is actually, it's dated today, but it's old information. Governor of Texas declared Sunday, July 6th, a day of prayer in Texas for the victims and survivors and search and rescue and recovery teams. So there's the proclamation, day of prayer. So yes, very sad situation here. So here's a video. Watch, the Texas National Guard rescues a large group of young girls who were at a camp near Kerrville. So grateful for these guys. So anyway, there's quite a few videos embedded here. That is on notthebee.com. And then this one I thought was weird too. I found this one, may have been linked from Daily Crow maybe. The Smoking Gun, which is a website I've never heard of, but I thought this was wild. Lottery winner has dizzying criminal record. A persistent felony offender just nabbed $167.3 million jackpot. How about that? Not suspicious at all either, I guess. July 2nd, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. In the last 2 months, since a winning Powerball ticket catapulted him into the 1%, James Farthing has spent most of his time residing in Florida and Kentucky, specifically county jails in those two states. On April 28th, Farthing claimed a $167.3 million jackpot, the largest in Kentucky lottery history. He had purchased the winning $2 ticket at a convenience store in Georgetown, a city where he shares an address with his 77-year-old mother. Flanked by his mother and his girlfriend, a beaming Farthing was presented with an oversized check by lottery officials who announced that the mother and son would be splitting the 9-figure windfall. Farthing, 50, was not quoted in Kentucky Lottery press release, which only identified him by his middle and last names. So you would think there would be some sort of law against winning the lottery if you're a convicted felon, but apparently not. So how about that? So he goes from convicted felon to $167.3 million. Wow. Wonder if he'll continue with his breaking of the laws. There's a Groundhog Day quality to Farthing's criminal history, which seems to feature a bountiful supply of offenses on loop. So, anyways, I don't know if that'll make him turn around or not, but I thought that was really weird. Never heard of that before. All right, and then, this is saying here, Trump signs major disaster declaration for Kerr County, Texas, as the death toll from the floods, the victim count goes to 70. And I think it's even higher than that. I keep seeing numbers that are even higher, but this is the official declaration here from Trump on the disaster being declared. So that is an InfoWars article. Modernity.news, I thought this was weird. Speaking of Trump, watch. Deranged woman makes detailed Trump and Vance voodoo dolls just so she can stab them. Yeah. She looks familiar to me. I don't know why, but mentally unstable individual is sharing videos of herself on TikTok, making complex dolls of President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance just so she can then stab them with needles. This clearly unhinged woman has managed to amass over 70,000 followers and says she does it for stress relief. So let me play this while I'm reading. I got it muted because it's, I think, just music playing, if I remember right. So here's her needles. It says, woman films herself making and stabbing President Trump and J.D. Vance dolls for her 70,000 followers. A little stress relief, said proclaimed she, her, D's Knots, I guess is her official name, on TikTok. Pew Research finds that 56% of young liberal white women have been diagnosed by a doctor or a healthcare provider with a mental health condition. Do you suppose? So here she is building the actual dolls here, I guess. Imagine having this much time on your hands and choosing to do this with it, it says. This is disturbing on every level. We need to reopen the mental asylums. So this is the, I guess, the J.D. Vance doll here. Supposed to look like a redneck or something, I don't know. Which I never really get that impression out of J.D. Vance, but I guess some people do. Anyways, yeah. Voodoo dolls. Why not? I don't know if she's actually a witch or not. I don't think it really says in that article. But I wouldn't be surprised. All right, vaccine impact. Also another article on the Camp Mystic stuff going on here. Yeah, Camp Mystic in Texas is a Freemason camp for daughters of the Texas elite. Which we kind of touched on that a little bit ago. First time I'd seen anything about it being a Freemason camp, but anyway. More details here if you guys want to check it out. It's on vaccineimpact.com. Talking about how the Texas politicians, the elite people in Texas, send their girls there. Christian summer camps like Camp Mystic are usually summer experiences designed to find the brightest and best students still in grade school through high school and then get them into the Freemason system to get them into the best colleges and universities in the U.S. where they join Freemason fraternities for men or sororities for women. These clubs, quote unquote, then propel their members into the highest levels of business and politics. The two Bush presidents, for example, came out of Skull and Bones, a fraternity at Yale. The Chinese chapter produced Mao Zedong. Wow. Once adults, these summer youth camps are replaced by other summer camp experiences for the influential and wealthy people, such as the Sun Valley Conference for Billionaires, the Bilderberg Group, and Bohemian Grove. Kappa Kappa Gamma was one of the first female campus sororities formed. And as the article I quoted above stated, Mystic Camp girls develop connections to get into the local chapters in Texas. So how about that? Mystic Camp's website has been mostly unreachable since the flood started, but you can view it on archive.org. So you can see the website if you want to check it out. But this whole thing is very strange. And, like all these major stories that happen, it does seem like there's some weird twist to it. I don't know why. But anyway, Camp Mystic is still a bit of a question mark here as to what is really going on there. And then the other vaccine impact article I pulled up, the brain death fallacy. Dr. Heidi Klessig exposes the organ harvesting industry. And this is something that I've mentioned from time to time, just talking about don't ever sign your organ donation thing on the back of your driver's license. And that's because they will let you die to then sell your organs. Anyway, this is about brain death specifically. Excellent interview just recently recorded with Dr. Heidi Klessig, author of the book, The Brain Death Fallacy, published in 2023. Brain death is still a relatively new idea. In 1968, 13 men at Harvard published a landmark paper, The Definition of Irreversible Coma, in which they proposed that certain comatose people on a ventilator could be considered to be dead already. They had no tests and no studies, no evidence that these people who had always previously been considered to be alive that were now somehow dead. Their paper has no scientific references whatsoever. The authors simply presented this new idea on utilitarian grounds. They thought these people were a burden to themselves and to others, and that declaring them dead already would free up valuable ICU beds and facilitate organ donation. There you go. And then it's just asking the question, are these people actually dead? And getting into the details there. Oh, she was on with Gareth Ike on his show. So that is embedded here on this article. Very interesting. So average amount billed for transplants in the U.S. A heart, $1.4 million. So it's quite the moneymaker, isn't it? So if you're in the old proverbial car accident and you've signed your organ donation thing on the back of your driver's license and they clear it with your family or whatever, this is how they might carve you up. So 1.4 million for a heart, 862,000 for a single lung, 813,000 for a liver, 893,000 for bone marrow, 30,000 for a cornea, 1.1 million for an intestine, 415,000 for a kidney, and 347,000 for a pancreas. So we are clearly all worth way more dead than alive. But then again, you're not actually dead, are you? You're just in a coma situation, a comatose situation. So, I don't know. Here's another link to an article. Man wakes up on operating tables as doctors were harvesting his organs. The medical system places a higher value on your organs than on your life. Yeah. So, very key, very key. So definitely do not sign those organ donation things. We had a guy, I don't remember his name now, we had a guest on Lost Arts Radio years ago who talked about that. And ever since then, I've been very aware of that. I don't remember, maybe 2018, something like that. I'd have to go back and look, try to find the archive of it. But you could check on lostartsradio.com if you guys want to have a look. Anyway, and then this one, this is actually not a brand new article, but I just found it. So it's new to me. Rabbi warns of imminent earthquake as pre-Messiah sign. Imminent earthquake. So I had to find out, okay, where's the earthquake? Where is the earthquake going to be, according to the rabbi? And of course, it is the potential for a major earthquake in the Cascadia subduction zone. So that's where the earthquake is, according to this guy. I was figuring that it might be an earthquake in or around Israel, but no, not at all. It's all about the Cascadia subduction zone. Which I'm not saying, I'm not making light of that. That is very possible, but I just wanted to see how that was possibly going to be tied to their Messiah returning, or their Messiah coming, which would be the Moshiach, which is not Jesus Christ. So, anyway, it's all about the earthquake and where it might happen and all of the details there that they're just totally guessing at. But you can check it out if you want. It does mention Nibiru, which is the whole Planet X thing, which I'm not really super into, but I do find the Planet X thing interesting because I do end up reporting on that a little bit. So I pulled up Yowza just to see if there was any new news on Yowza.com. And indeed there is. There's a new article here, dated just a couple days ago, Signs 102 incoming. And this picture right here is really the key in the whole article, and I would think that it's also got some more pictures and more detail in the Telegram channel for this website. So if you guys are on Telegram, it is linked here. Yowza announcements and their chat and stuff. Says last night Yowza.com, YOWUSA, researcher JP Jones sent me this report data. This is Marshall Masters who wrote this. Sent me this report data for June this year. He included a note that made me pause, and the quote was this: check your undies before opening. I hope June is not a forewarning. That was the quote. My first thought was I'd rather see it after my morning coffee, which I did. He was right. Additionally, there was more bad news. I also awoke to find an observation post on my Telegram channel with a stunning image of Nemesis and Helion. So that's what we're seeing here in this picture. It is a graphic for the article, and it's pretty remarkable. There is Nemesis right here on top, and Helion in the lower left. My heart sank because this is how I remote viewed Nemesis in 2015. So again, Marshall Masters, I said in the video that I made back in 2019, which was episode 1 of End Times Dates, that I like Marshall Masters. I think he's a good researcher, but he's very new agey. And here he's talking about remote viewing, which is a super new age idea. I do think it's possible, but it's not rooted in Christian principles at all, for sure. Anyway, says the folks who control and own Google, Facebook, and others have been ruthless this year in suppressing this topic. The keywords Planet X or Nibiru or Two Suns are shadow banned, redirected, and posts are disappearing within hours or days, and then that happens time and time again. The elites know they cannot unaware the aware, so they are blocking newbies from finding the info. And it says, with that in mind, let's get into the numbers. And it talks about the June 2025 fireballs, and it goes on from there. I'll let you guys read the article if you want, but this is a pretty interesting picture. What we're seeing here, again, is Nemesis and Helion. Nemesis is the brown dwarf star as part of this mini constellation that has Planet X, or Nibiru, if you want to call it that, in that. And is that the same as what the book of Revelation talks about with wormwood? I don't know. It seems to me like they probably are connected. And, he does talk about it every now and then, talks about Planet X as wormwood. I don't know if that's true or not. I do find it very interesting, and these are some of the pictures that he's published, and the reason it can't really be seen except for certain times is because it's on the opposite side of our sun. So you'd have to be looking at the sun or looking toward the sun to be able to see it, and it only works on certain places of the globe, certain places of the earth, and certain times of day. So at dusk or at dawn or that type of thing. So that is where most of these types of pictures are taken. I do think it's legit. I think there is something to it. I don't know if it's quite as big of a deal as what Marshall talks about, but it might be. If it's indeed wormwood, then it certainly would be, because we know what the Bible says about what happens when wormwood comes into our plane of existence, don't we? Anyway, that's on Yowza.com. So we'll link to this in the Substack post if you guys want to check it out further. And then geoengineeringwatch.org, we have Engineering Biblical Floods, 90-second clip. I thought we'd go ahead and play this. It's a short one, talking about the Texas floods. So let's see what Mr. Dane has to say.
From devastating droughts to deadly deluge, welcome to weather warfare. 24 dead in Texas, dozens of girls at Camp Mystic missing after catastrophic flooding. That's from the Weather Channel. From Newsbreak.com, drought to deluge, why weather extremes are becoming the new normal. Yes, they are. But why? Keep your eyes to the skies and you'll have your answer. From Conflict and Environmental Observatory, this headline, INMOD, Environmental Modification Treaties, to Geoengineering, the environment as a weapon of war. For the record, all the way back in the 1960s, the U.S. military was so successful at controlling the flow of precipitation in Vietnam that by the 1970s, international treaties were passed forbidding such operations in wartime settings. Does any country abide by such treaties? Of course not, most especially over their own populations for which the international treaties did not even apply. Here's proof from the U.S. Department of State.gov. Quote, the provisions of this convention shall not hinder the use of environmental modification techniques for peaceful purposes. Next question, does what just happened in Texas, along with the rest of the not natural climate cataclysms around the world, fall under the definition of peaceful? Short answer, absolutely not. Next question, how much more effective are the weather manipulation, weather warfare technologies today after 60 years of advancements? You decide. If you think the money printers that ultimately control the U.S. government and military are here to help you and your posterity, think again. Populations are a rapidly increasing liability for the controllers who are now more desperate and dangerous than ever before.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Dane. That was a good report. It was a short one, and we put that out on the email system earlier today, so look for that in your inbox if you haven't already seen it. But yeah, orchestrating biblical floods, 90-second alert. Orchestrating biblical floods, welcome to weather warfare. Texas floods leave dozens dead, which obviously we know it's pushing 80 at this point that we know of. Missing as crews search for survivors. Drought to deluge, why weather extremes are becoming the new normal. Though mainstream media and official sources will never admit to it, climate engineering operations are the core component of the rapidly worsening weather whiplash scenarios. Control the weather, control the world. So anyway, yeah, that is the most recent post on GeoWatch for this week. And then from Saturday, we have Global Alert News, which is the full show, which is a little bit more expanded version of what we just went through, talking about orchestrating biblical floods. So feel free to look at this. If you guys haven't already, make sure you're on our email list. You can sign up right here. In the left-hand column, you just click on email list sign up and throw your email address in, and you will get the email blasts when we send them out, usually once a week, something like that. Generally Saturdays, for the most part, when we blast those out to people. So, yeah, the list is growing, so that's always good. People are becoming more and more aware of what's going on in our skies, which I think is very, very important. All right, well, if you're on X, make sure that you are following along with what I'm doing, if you don't mind, the Diamond Report on X. You could just do a search for the Diamond Report, or it's the Diamond RPRT. The Diamond RPRT. So there you go, and I usually put up clips from the show and then do some interesting retweets of some things that I find during the week. Didn't have a whole lot of time this week to do that, but it is available if you guys want to check it out. I do like X. I feel like it's pretty good as far as a social media platform. Not getting a huge number of followers or lots of traction on there, but I do think that it seems to be pretty good as far as being able to post what you want. So not really too worried about being blocked or canceled on X, although I do think things do get shadow banned depending on what you're talking about. And geoengineering for right now still seems to be kind of one of those things where, yes, you can talk about it, you can say what you want, but there's a question as to how many people will actually see what you're saying. So that's called being shadow banned. So anyway, yeah, that is on X, and it's the Diamond Report on there, and then make sure you're on my Substack list. Totally free, and you can sign up just by dropping your email address in there, and Miss Emily's put the links in the chat. It's in the chat on Rumble as well as YouTube. So feel free to be on that list. I would certainly appreciate that. And then if you want to support the show and what I'm doing, that would be a huge, huge help. Thank you guys for helping. I've got a total of 15 paid subscribers. That is 10 on Substack and 5 on Subscribestar. So there's 2 options here. Subscribestar does give you a few more options as far as levels, different tiers that you could pick from. But they are there. If you guys want to help what I'm doing, I would really appreciate that. As I mentioned last week, we will have a cost increase coming up here just because the live stream software I use is going to be charging me. They're not currently. I'm currently using a free live stream software to bring this broadcast to you, but they are going to be charging me by the end of this month. I still don't know what that amount is. I will try and find that out this week. But not fun, but I will have to pay to be live streaming to 2 platforms or more. Basically anything above 1 platform from here on out. And we are live streaming to Rumble as well as YouTube simultaneously here. So otherwise, I think if we went with the free one, I would have to drop Rumble, unfortunately, and I don't want to do that. The Rumblers would not like that. We've got 7 people watching on Rumble right now, and we have about 20 or so on YouTube at the moment. So thank you guys for being here tonight. Let me look at your posts in the chat. Let me see if I missed anything. I probably did. So let me go back and have a look. You guys talking about the crowns, the number 1, number 2, number 3 crowns in the chat, which you don't see that reflected in the chat burned into the screen. Not sure why. That might be coming. Again, it goes back to the live stream software and how it connects to YouTube, and they don't have that feature enabled yet, is my guess. So that will be a subsequent update at some point to get the little crowns on the screen. So I guess we could wrap it up. We are just about to the end of the broadcast. We are a little bit earlier tonight than last week, so that's a plus. We went really long last week, if you guys missed it. So if you want to help the show, you can do so by purchasing anything at the store, and it is in the upper right corner up there. Shop.thediamond.report. That's what it looks like. There are various options there. Anyway, there is the store if you guys are interested in shirts or hats or any of that stuff. Mugs, mouse pads. We have all kinds of stuff here in the store, and that would be one way you can contribute to what I'm doing. Certainly would appreciate that, and I know some of you guys have bought stuff from there, and I thank you very much for doing that. So there's that, and then there's also, of course, Substack and Subscribestar if you guys want to support the show. But again, one of the best ways and easiest things you guys can do is totally free, and that is simply subscribe to what I'm doing and or help me by sharing the show. That is always a huge help. So we've got the YouTube channel, Take It to the Lord in Prayer, on YouTube, and then Diamond Disc on most of these other platforms like Rumble, BitChute, and Brighteon. So here's Rumble, here's BitChute, here's Brighteon, and that's pretty much it. And we have the band group. Did get another person added to the group. We're almost at 100 people. And yeah, feel free to join the group if you're not already in it. And I know many of you guys in chat already are. But if you're watching this later, know that that is available and is totally free. And it's a good group of people in there. And I would add that it is not a dating site. I always say that. It's not a dating site, but it is there if you guys want to check it out. And I certainly would appreciate that. And definitely feel free to stay in touch this week. I guess we can wrap it up. We're a little earlier than normal, but I think that's a plus. And I didn't have as many videos and stuff this week. I think that was the main thing. But thank you guys for being here tonight, and really appreciate that. It is now officially 7/7/25, just after midnight. And the next show will be on July the 13th. So coming up next Sunday, the 13th at 10 p.m. Central. So we'll do it again then. And we will wrap it up for tonight, though. Thank you guys again for being here tonight. It really, really means a lot to me that you spent your time with me tonight. And I don't take that lightly at all. And I just ask that you continue to hold me up and hold the show up in prayer, if you don't mind. I really appreciate that. And anything you can do as far as going to the Lord with not only your stuff and your friends and family, but, you know, it always is helpful to have people speaking on your behalf to the Lord. And I just ask that you please keep me in your prayers. It would really mean a lot for me. It means a lot to me and the show as well. So anyways, thanks again, you guys, and we'll plan to do it again next week, and we'll see you guys then. And blessings to you all, and hope you all have a really great week, and we'll talk to you then. Love you all. Talk to you later.